Hi lovelies! The countdown to Christmas is officially on, which means the baking is in full force, at least at my house. And today I'm going to be sharing with you an absolutely amazing recipe for these white chocolate macadamia nut cookies. Now, of course, these are a total classic around the holidays and all year round because they're soft, chewy, creamy, sweet, basically cookie perfection. In fact, these are actually Greg's favorite cookies, so he always asks for them this time of year, and I am always happy to oblige because let's be honest, I love them too. Now, my friends, I can honestly tell you, this year I have totally leaned into baking season. I don't know if it's just the fact that I have kids now or that I spend more time at home, but I have been doing a lot of baking. So if you're on my Christmas list, the chances are you're probably getting cookies. And there's a very good chance you're getting these delicious cookies because they're absolutely incredible and they're super easy to make. So for this recipe, as with many cookie recipes, we're going to start by mixing up our dry ingredients. So in my bowl, I've got some good old-fashioned all-purpose flour, I've got a little bit of baking powder, and a little bit of salt. Keeping things pretty classic here. Just gonna go in here with my whisk and mix this all up. If you're ever wondering why you mix your dry ingredients together before adding them to your wet, it's just because you wanna make sure that that salt and baking powder are really well incorporated into your flour before adding them so that they don't all sort of clump into one place within your cookies. The other thing you wanna do is break up any sort of chunks in your flour. So this is kind of like an easier way to sift your flour. Next, it's time to mix up my wet ingredients. And of course, that all starts with some butter. All great cookies, in my opinion, start with some butter. So I've got 1 cup of butter here, or 2 sticks at room temperature. That's super important. And I'm going to be mixing that butter up until it's nice and light and fluffy. Now, if you're looking for the full measurements for any of my recipes, you could always find them linked in the description box below. I just find it's a lot easier to write them down there as opposed to you trying to write them down as I'm talking, especially because I do tend to talk a little quickly. Once our butter has started to loosen up quite a bit, it's time to go ahead and add our sugar to that. So I'm using a combination of brown sugar and white sugar in this recipe. I find you always get the best cookies when you use both. That's because the brown sugar has extra flavor thanks to the added molasses, and the white sugar creates a really lovely texture. So the addition of both of them is going to give you the most delicious cookie you can imagine. Once again, I'm gonna get in here with my hand mixer and just beat this until it is really well combined. Once that's nice and mixed up, we're gonna go ahead and add our egg to this. Always important, if you can remember, to bring your egg to room temperature before adding it to your dough. That's going to give you best results. So you want room temperature butter, room temperature egg, and a nice healthy splash of vanilla extract. I will just tell you guys, vanilla extract is something I never skimp on in baking. I always love a nice strong vanilla flavor, and vanilla really works to enhance all of the other flavors in your cookies, so you really can't go wrong. Once I've got all of that blended together, I can go ahead and add my dry ingredients to this, and I'll give it one more really good mix until I've got a nice thick dough formed. Now, I should mention, this is actually my classic cookie dough. With this cookie dough, you can pretty much make like 80% of cookies. And the best part is you can add anything to this dough and end up with something super delicious. So you could make a classic chocolate chip cookie, you could do like cranberries and pistachios, you could do potato chips and pretzels if you wanted to. This dough is really, really versatile, which is why I love it so much, and I use it year after year for so many different cookie recipes. And today I've opted for some white chocolate and macadamia nut cookies, 2 of my very favorite things to ever go into cookies. Now here I've got a nice big helping of white chocolate chips. We're gonna get those right into the bowl. And then I'm also adding my macadamia nuts. Now I should mention that macadamia nuts like these can be a little on the pricey side, which is why I really like to reserve them for special occasions like the holidays. Now, if you can't find macadamia nuts or you'd prefer to use a different kind of nut, you could certainly swap in some pecans, some walnuts, or even some slivered almonds would be really beautiful in these cookies. Even some nice green pistachios would be super festive. Totally up to you. But I have to say, macadamia nuts are definitely my first choice here. I'm just gonna go ahead and use a spoon to fold all of that goodness in and get it really beautifully studded throughout my cookies. Once I've got my white chocolate chips and macadamia nuts folded into my dough, it's time to form my cookies. Now, in this case, I'm gonna be doing that with an ice cream scoop. I want these cookies to be pretty substantial in size, so an ice cream scoop is a good choice. If you wanted them a little smaller, you could use like a 1 to a 1.5 inch cookie scoop. It's totally up to you. Now I'm just gonna go in with my ice cream scoop, get a good amount of dough, roll it into a ball with my hands, and then press it into a disc shape. Then I just arrange my cookies on a parchment-lined baking sheet. I like to give them a little space so they can spread out a little during the baking process. Has anyone else had the Christmas carols on absolute repeat since November, or is that just me? Yeah, my husband's kind of over it. You know what he's not over though? Cookies. We only ever get to give away like half the cookies because the other half he eats. Okay friends, these are looking amazing and they are ready to make their way to the oven. I like to cook these at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for no more than 8 to 10 minutes, just until they're golden. You don't want to overcook them because you want them to stay nice and soft and chewy and not get too crisp around the edges. And then when they come out of the oven, you're going to let them sit for about 5 minutes and they'll just keep cooking until they become absolutely perfect. Guys, you will not believe how amazing these cookies are. They're soft, chewy, tender, flavorful. Basically perfection. I think Santa will approve. Don't believe me? Give them a try for yourselves. And of course, if you do, be sure to tweet me, Instagram me, or Facebook me a photo because I always love seeing your kitchen creations. Remember, this recipe, like all of my recipes, is linked in the description box below. You can find it there. And finally, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe because there is lots more deliciousness where this came from.